We will win this together.
Disintegration, cleansing, annihilation.
Any other design to challenge?
Her power is an illusion. Her dreams shall not be erased so.
Be gone!
I think less.
Turn away! No! Impossible! How? This isn't over. This will never be over. I will unify humanity.
Handle this! Give yourself to the void. Time to up the stakes! Shadow, light, fight! Life is so brittle. Oh, a glorious your flesh is so fallible. Toward the terrors! Grasp your mortality tightly. The void protects its children. Tight tethers.
I will not be made a fool. Sanity, my angel. Your victories will not continue. You win again.
Hello. This is a one-button, one-minion build using Reliquarian and Animate Guardian of Smiting. I tried to make most of the elements automated so the build is cozier to play. The build also uses a lot of uniques, so minimal crafting is required. This is a player life stacking build. We set up the AG with a Grey Wind, Rathpith, and Crown of Eyes. This works because the wording on the Grey Wind is, attacks with this weapon have added fire damage equal to 8 to 12% of player's maximum life. This means that even when your AG is holding it, Grey Wind still scales off of player life instead of the AG's life. We give the AG Rathpith because of the line 5% increased spell damage per 100 player maximum life. When we combine this with Crown of Eyes' increases and reductions to spell damage also apply to attacks at 150% of their value, the increased spell damage you get from stacking player life is converted to increased attack damage for the AG. With these items on our AG, we can scale player life to make yourself tankier while also getting more damage for your AG. With a 5% Rathpith and around 17,000 life, we get 850% increased spell damage from Rathpith, which in turn becomes 1,275% increased attack damage for the AG. With that much increase, we give the AG a hefty amount of base damage to a 12% Grey Wind, which represents 2,040 flat fire damage, as well as Flame Link, which gives an additional 850 flat fire damage, for a total of around 2,890 flat fire damage. You can even get more value out of a 6% Rathpith or a 14% Grey Wind, but basically the more player life you get, the better the build will feel. This is a build that stacks defenses to get more offense, so it has pretty good tankiness. In addition to stacking player life, we increase our max resistances and recovery layers with a cast when stunned setup with Blood Notch and Defiance of Destiny. The reason I chose a Reliquarian was to use a Maata's teaching node. This makes it so that minions' base attack critical strike chance is equal to the critical strike chance of your main hand weapon. If we combine this with Trypanon, which has this weapon's critical strike chance is 100%, our AG gets a 100% crit chance out of the gate. Pretty good. It's also a two-hander, which is relevant because it means that you can opt for a Calm's Heart for the chest piece while still being able to 6-link the AG. It also has two corrupts that are relevant. Socketed Gems are supported by level 10 Momentum, or level 10 Fortify, which can let you get up to a pseudo 8-link, though this is not necessary for the build to function. After guaranteeing the AG's crit, the next question is its crit multi. I noticed that it's a bit difficult to get only minion crit multi, as it tends to be paired with minion critical strike chance, which is a waste, because we already have 100% minion crit chance. Like here on the minion wheel, you'd end up picking up irrelevant minions' critical strike chance. Spirit Offering also has critical strike chance mixed in as well, which seemed wasteful. So instead, I opted to run Maligaro's Virtuosity Gloves on the AG, which has a line that says, your critical strike multiplier is 300%. For reference, the base critical strike multiplier for minions is 130%, which amounts to 30% extra damage. With the gloves, it becomes 200% extra damage, which is effectively a 200% more multiplier if we are always critting. You can look for a convenient corrupt for applying a curse. I opted for Enfeeble. There is a caveat in that, as Maligaro's is an override mod, we can't invest into critical multi even if we wanted to, but this works out as not having to invest in minion crit nodes means we can put the difference into more life nodes. As for the rest of the AG's items, the AG's body armor is Garb of the Ephemeral, which gives crit immunity and divinity charges. This is functionally an occasional 75% more multiplier for elemental damage. You can also look for a synthesized mod for 10 to 12% increased attack and cast speed during Onslaught, which can be altered using a Blessing Orb if you find one with a lower roll. The AG also runs the Foulborn 7 League Boots, which gives 15% increased action speed, which acts as a kind of more modifier on attack speed. If it is too expensive, you can run the regular 7 League Boots for the 50% movement speed. Now for the rest of the player's equipment. The helmet is the Hollowed Monarch. It lets linked skills target damageable minions, and also makes linked minions take far less damage. This helps when loading into hostile areas like mirages. It also allows the AG to pretend to have a headhunter and gain modifiers from killing rare monsters. This last part is a double-edged sword, as some rare modifiers can bug out the AG. The belt we use is the Senchu of Benevolence. This makes your non-unique utility flasks you use apply to linked targets. The wording is a bit misleading, as it makes it sound like only the linked target gets the benefits from the flasks. but the way it actually works is that the flasks apply to both you and the linked target. Important flasks are Quicksilver for movement speed, Silver Flask for onslaught, and a Quartz Flask for phasing. The belt's main benefit is to make the AG faster and to bug out less when targeting enemies. We also run a cast when stunned setup. In order to guarantee we get stunned, we use Valerium, which says stun threshold is based on energy shield instead of life, and a Reliquarian Brass Dome Ascendancy node, which removes all energy shield. With this setup, every hit will stun us. With this, we gain a recovery layer with Blood Notch's 30% of damage taken from stunning hits is recovered as life, and this node here, which adds a further 10% of damage taken from stunning hits is recovered as life. Together, 40% of damage taken from stunning hits is instantly recovered as life. This has the advantage of making this a one-button build, as we can use cast when stunned support with Desecrate and Flesh Offering to automate them. We also use an Immutable Force, which doesn't give any survivability, but reduces stun duration to prevent you from getting stun locked if a lot of monsters start mobbing you at the same time. Also, make sure that the Pantheon is not set to Brine King, as this will prevent you from getting stunned properly. As we are stacking life, we use the Defiance of Destiny amulet, which gives gain 24% of missing unreserved life before being hit by an enemy. As we stack more life, the healing scales along with it, and it gives a ton of protection against shotgunning. As Defiance of Destiny can be a bit expensive, you can instead opt to run Replica Dragon's Fang's Flight, with +3 to level of all Animate Guardian gems, although this version of the build is more vulnerable to shotgunning. If you do this, you can use Petrified Blood and Arctic Armor with the Maata Conquest Reliquarian Ascendancy node that gives 40% recoup to offset the degen from Petrified Blood. Note that you'll also want to grab the Agnostic Keystone to remove your ES if you do this. And this Aura cluster down here, which gives some increased life preservation efficiency along with some life regeneration nodes. I've included a pod with the alternative setup as well. That's the basic setup. Trypanon, Calm's Heart, Valerium, Bloodnotch, Immutable Force, Hollowed Monarch, Sanchu of Benevolence, and Defiance of Destiny on the player. Grey Wind, Crown of Eyes, Rathpith, Malagar's Virtuosity with Enfeeble and Hit Corrupt, Garbled Ephemeral with a synthesized increased attack speed while affected by Onslaught, and Foulborn 7 League Steps on the AG. For the AG links, I wanted to try out the new Invert the Rules support gem, which lets hits from supported skills have 44% chance to treat enemy monster elemental resistance values as inverted. Because of the way elemental inversion works, you don't want to run any curses like flammability or elemental weakness, or anything else that gives exposure, as it reduces the value you get from the support. I opted to run the Rune Graft of Treachery, which makes your auras apply to nearby enemies, along with Purity of Elements, to increase the enemy's resistances, with Eternal Blessing and an Imbued Arrogance to increase the efficacy. Because you are giving nearby enemies Purity of Elements, you also give them ailment immunity. If you play Blight, something I didn't realize until later is that freezing towers don't work if you get too close, as monsters become freeze immune from the ailment immunity. However, inverting resistances means you could run more mods on maps and on Inscribed Ultimatums, like this one. Treacherous Auras makes your auras affect enemies, and Resistant Monsters gives plus 50% to all resistances, but neither of those mods matter anymore because of the setup. I'll also note that Fire Penetration applies after inversion, which is nice as a build doesn't have to give it up as a support gem either. Finally, there's a new support gem that is amazing for this build that came out this league. Transfusion Support. This support gem gives a nearby minion gains a soul for every 200 life you spend on upfront costs with supported spells. Each soul gives 5% increased attack speed, 1% character size, and 2% less damage taken. This makes the AG start attacking hilariously fast while also making it much tankier. This support honestly bailed out the entire build, as you'd previously run Soul Ascension Gloves on the AG to give it souls, like with the Soul Eater mod. But now we can use Malagar's Virtuosity instead. This support doesn't even come with the downside of taking up an AG support link, as the transfusion support will give souls automatically to a nearby minion, and can be linked to a separate setup that will still give your AG souls. The setup we use is Automation, Corrupting Fever, and Transfusion support, as Corrupting Fever has a high innate life cost. I kept mine at level 2 for that reason. As it uses automation, it will conveniently start casting and giving souls to your AG immediately after entering a map. It does have a bit of a ramp time, which is annoying on bosses, but it tends to not be that big of a deal during maps. For jewels, we run a timeless jewel here with Caspero to get Supreme Ostentation. I got a jewel that also gives Slumlord here for the increased minion damage, but it's not all that necessary. The Supreme Ostentation lets you ignore the stat requirements for the Trypanon, and more importantly, lets you tattoo the intelligence nodes at the top to get chaos resistance. Because the build runs so many uniques, and also because I opted to only care about life on my ring, it made it difficult to cap chaos resistance. Conveniently, there is a Watcher's Eye mod for Purity of Elements that gives chaos resistance while affected by Purity of Elements. There is also an available mod for +1 to maximum resistances as well, but this can make the jewel more expensive. Along with chaos resistance on the boots and gloves, it becomes easy to cap chaos res. There is more flex here, as there are a number of ways of getting chaos resistance, like running chaos resistance on the ring, opting for some chaos resistance on your Eldritch Implicit, a rare jewel, an amethyst flask, etc. On the left side is a Foulborn Red Dream, which has the line, passives granting fire resistance or all elemental resistances in radius also grant increased maximum life at 50% of its value. We can increase the value from this jewel by using fire resistance tattoos, as those count for increasing the life this jewel grants. I also opted for a Sublime Vision for more maximum resistances, as I was only going to run Purity of Elements anyways, but this is also optional. For the other tattoos, I went for life regeneration on the strength nodes, given that the build has so much life anyways. Here are some other nodes that didn't fit anywhere else. First, I would be remiss if I didn't mention the worst bug that affects this build. Every once in a while, the AG starts fleeing from the player and basically stops attacking. Sometimes, the AG will attack once and then run away until it despawns and reappears next to the player again. The bug remains persistent for a while, and the only way I found to fix it is either logging out or unequipping the gem while paused and resummoning the AG in the same map. This is particularly annoying in Inscribed Ultimatums, as you cannot log out during the trial, and has caused me to fail breaches and maps, as the AG didn't kill enough enemies and the breach ended. I'm not totally sure what causes the bug, but I think it's related to some combination of mods that the AG steals from rares because of the Hollowed Monarch. Also, the gameplay is pseudo-hardcore. If the AG dies, it cannot respawn in the same instance again. This is okay during maps, as you could technically respawn the AG during the Mirage, as it is considered a separate instance, but during boss fights like Maven or the Feared, this can be annoying. The AG gets substantially tankier after ramping up some souls from the transfusion, but what can end up happening is you can die during your first attempt and then fail the second attempt instantly because the AG hasn't had the chance to ramp up tankiness yet. Next, I'm not sure exactly what the logic is for how the AG equips items. I initially deleted 4 divines because I messed up putting items on the AG. When the AG equips a Grey Wind to the offhand slot, there is no convincing him to take it off. The foolproof way is to equip a 2-hander to the AG, then equipping the Grey Wind, and then finally the Rathpith for the weapons. It's very finicky, and I wish there was a mercenary-styled UI for swapping out the items. Also, make sure to quality your items before equipping them to the AG. It's easy to forget the free value. For the final 2 Ascendancy points, I opted for the new Sirus Bloodline Ascendancy, and took Bound Flesh, which says, maximum Bariatric Tension is equal to 30% of maximum life. Gain 20 Bariatric Tension per 20 life spent on upfront cost of spells. When you take a savage hit, lose Bariatric Tension to recover that much life, up to maximum. Basically, it operates as another recovery layer when getting hit, along with Defiance of Destiny. It also gives more value from the life costs being paid by the transfusion support. When looking to buy the Grey Wind, the build only cares about this mod. Attacks with this weapon have added fire damage equal to 8 to 12% of players' maximum life. The rage portion is irrelevant. The increased fire damage technically counts, but isn't that important. For the Rathpith, only the 5% increased spell damage per 100 player maximum life mod matters here as well. You can find ones with 6% as well on trade for a couple of divines. During maps, another option is to replace a support gem with a new Annihilation support gem. It has killing blows cause enemies to have a 45% chance to explode, which can speed up maps where single target is less important. Flamelink's targeting is generous. You only really have to aim in the general area to successfully link to the AG, which is handy, as you can lose track of the AG easily during a juice map. During ultimatums and simulacrums, I would hold down the link button on my character, and it'd reliably reapply the link until the waves were done, which makes it easier to have a pseudo AFK playstyle. Resistances are overcapped to account for exposure, and I like having enough resistances to blindly clink on Eater Shrines. The Eater Shrines are also why I don't run any endurance charges, as those become downsides depending on the Eater mods that are rolled. So that's basically the whole setup. Some things I might change is maybe running a Voices with an Adorn setup, and also maybe grabbing 3 Grand Spectrum Crimson Jewels, which end up giving 15% increased maximum life each. There's also a mod for Mercenaries that converts minion fire damage into chaos. That might be interesting, but I didn't look into it too much. Making this build has been a pretty fun process. I've wanted to play a minion build that only focused on a single minion for a while, and the new transfusion support makes this playstyle really enjoyable. Despite the quirks of the AG, and some bugs where he suddenly decides to become a pacifist, the whole process has been a really neat journey. Anyways, hope you enjoyed the build. I hope you find it helpful. Have a good one.